Okay, so for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 5, How Karma Works, on June 6, 2024, 6 p.m. my time. How about that? So let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them here with you, just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. We are learning that that is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And thinking what you know of karma and emptiness, grow that longing into an intention. Then turn your mind back to that precious holy being. we know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of that perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Alrighty. So there are a few here and some that I thought would be here that aren't here, who will be hearing the recording. And so for those new to me, in order for you to get the most out of your time with these classes, I need you to complete the course in a certain way. And so what I ask is that you listen to the lesson, whether it's live or the recording, doesn't matter. You then read the readings, read the student notes, then go through your homework, open book. You know what we mean by open book. Use all your notes, everything you need to fill out the homework. Then look at the answer key and compare your homework answers to the answer key. They don't have to be word for word, except when it asks for a definition. When it asks for a definition, write down exactly what you hear me give you. When you're marking your own paper from the answer key, you know, if you need to adjust your answer somewhat, take off 1 or 2 points, that's all. If you leave a whole question blank, take off 5 points. Otherwise, you know, be nice to yourself. Give yourself high scores, it's fine. Then review the answer key. Review the student notes, review your student notes, then put it all away and take your quiz from your own mind. Then get out the answer key. Mark your quiz from the answer key. So you end up going over the material like multiple times. That's the idea. Please do all of that before your next class. So if you have to miss a class, get that recording, get on it right away. When we miss a class, you're welcome to come back. But when we do, we're not all on the same page. So try to take personal responsibility to help the whole group uplift by being up to date with the next class that's coming. I want you to have completion karma being made from these classes. And, you know, it doesn't matter so much now, and it doesn't matter so much, you know, that you have this ACI certificate, except for the seeds that you're planting in your mind to achieve that goal of becoming the one who can help that other in that deep and ultimate way. Right? So it seems like, what's the connection? But it's a very carefully designed connection by the lineage that we're studying. Right? So have fun doing it, please, but please do it. Make it a priority. Okay? Alrighty. Be sure, and you're submitting your papers, you have at least one meditation date and time for each assignment. You're welcome to put more, but at least one. And best not to wait until the end and do them all in one day, right? Do them as you go along. And they don't have to be formal Omahung meditations. Just sit down and think about it. Right? And that qualifies as the meditation assignment. Okay. All righty. I ask that you show me your homeworks and quizzes. If you do them on paper, just hold them up to the camera when we get to class. If you do them online, you can email them to me. I don't care. Just send me what you have, right? I won't go through them line by line, but I will look to see that they were done. And every now and then I like stop and go, okay, I'll read somebody's papers. Again, I'm going for the completion for all of us. Okay, so that said, that's enough. This particular group time slot, Thursdays and Sunday evenings, we've been working together for a while now. We started with the Source of All My Good Practice module, which was that module where we get an overview of where the ACI coursework will take us. And then that overview showed us, you know, very grossly the steps that we need to undergo in order to transform our perception of ourselves from suffering human being to fully awakened being, a being who's made of love, compassion, wisdom. Just that practice module is not enough, of course. So we started ACI Course 1, which was the 3 principal paths. Who can tell me what those 3 principal paths are? The path to the bathroom, the path to the kitchen, and the path to the garage, right? Going once, going twice, I have a finger. Nati, what are those 3?
Renunciation, bodhicitta, and a wish for enlightenment. No?
Perfect.
Yes.
Renunciation. There is something wrong with this picture, right? Everything goes wrong. Even when things are going right, I'm still unhappy. What's up with that? Right? There's just something wrong. At the beginning, renunciation. And then it goes very much deeper and more subtle. Bodhicitta, we know the definition. Lord Maitreya's short definition of bodhicitta, don't we? Luisa knows it.
The wish for enlightenment for the sake of every living being.
Right. So now, if that's the part of the three principal paths, that tells us right there that this Lamrim, this course of study, is a course of study that is inspired to aspire to becoming a fully enlightened being ourselves. Not all Buddhas have that aspiration. So studying the three principal paths automatically says that what we are studying is the Mahayana level of Buddhism versus what's called the Hinayana that I'll get back to. Then the third principle realization we need to reach is correct view. The correct view of the no self nature of me and other. What that means is different according to the capacity of the one who's hearing those words. And that evolves into what's called the four schools of Buddhism, of which there are really 4.5, and then actually 5.5, and then actually 6. And what's going on? My computer says I need to confirm my speaking language as Spanish. Am I speaking Spanish? Do I save or cancel? I canceled. Okay. Wait, my computer interrupted my flow of thought. Where was I?
How many
the,
schools?
The different schools. Thank you. So of the different schools, there are levels of practitioners whose aspiration is to reach their own freedom. And there are practitioners whose aspiration is for others, all others, to reach their freedom. And the only way that can happen is if I reach mine, right? Long story. So renunciation, bodhicitta, correct worldview. Then we moved to course 2, which was Buddhist refuge. In Buddhist refuge, we learned how it is that the three principal paths can actually help us make this transformation. Right? We learned what refuge really means. Then ACI course 3 was the course called Applied Meditation, which was like everything we need to know about meditation, except really quite how to do it. So we did that little extra stuff after applied meditation to help us, get a little better handle on what it is we have to do. But it took me a long time to really figure it out, you know, if what I was doing in meditation was really meditation or not. But we've got the basics in applied meditation. Then came course 4, called the Proof of Future Lives. It was logic, and the logic behind those 5 qualities of a Buddha, trying to show us how it is that a Buddha is a being of valid perception. I mean, even now it's like confusing. But the end result of that course was supposed to be that you learned the logic that can be used to show ourselves the eternal nature of our own consciousness. Did that come across in course 4? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And the ramifications of the eternal nature of your consciousness. Right? The ultimate ramification of that is those 5 qualities. Okay? Becoming a being of valid perception. So, course 5 is karma, how karma works. It's like the necessary next step. If my consciousness is eternal, and ultimately I'm going to become this being with those 5 qualities, how the heck does that happen? How the heck does it happen? Right? We make the projections for it. How do we make projections? Does anyone have a pen? I do. Oh, that's how we make projections. So we want to know everything we can about karma. Does anybody need a pen? I do. That's karma. In all its beautiful workings. From the karma to see someone in need, to the karma for having what they need, to the karma of being willing to give it up, to the seeing oneself actually do it, to the completion of doing it, and the yay, I did it completion part. Okay, all these different ways, subtle things involved in what we mean by karma. So course 5 is all about karma. When we understand that every instant of every circumstance we are experiencing is the result, karmic result of karmic seeds that we planted by way of what we saw ourselves or were aware of ourselves thinking, saying, doing to another, then we see that, oh my gosh, my own future is at the mercy of my current behavior. So we want to know, what behaviors should I avoid and what behaviors should I do? And we learned somewhere along the way that those 3 levels of reality, right? Obvious reality, subtle, is it reality? No, not reality. Perceptions, right? Obvious, subtle, and deeply hidden. Oh, it is reality, excuse me, deeply hidden reality. I'm always surprised to hear that deeply hidden reality is not emptiness. Deeply hidden reality is those direct, subtle workings of karma. So until we can access deeply hidden reality, we really can't know what behavior will bring what result. We can learn the principles and the guidelines and the ideas well enough that we can make a good educated guess. And then we can also decide that we can decide whether or not these teachings are authentic enough or valid enough for us to declare ourselves to follow the behavior guidelines they give with enough determination to actually take vows to do so. And we'll see why vow taking is such a big component of this tradition for lay people as well as ordained. When we understand this interrelationship between emptiness and karma by the end of this course. All right. So I intend to start every class reading to you the source of all my good prayer. I would like you to just listen to it. If you've studied it before, right? You can think of what you know, what you've learned. If you've not studied it before, just let it wash into you. I want us to go into this karma course with this big picture awareness more present. Okay. So I'm actually ready to start class 1 now with the source of all my good. Okay. All of that before was background information. So sit back and listen. Bobby, are you ready? The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow them with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I have found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are as fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things that I have done, the white or black, and what these deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of the Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the highest wish for enlightenment, to take upon myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough. For if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the vows for children of the victors. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together. One which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects. The other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I have practiced well the paths shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I have entered thus, the cause that gives me both the attainments is keeping my pledges and vows most pure. Grant that I may always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize the crucial points of both the stages, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual guide who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, the things within me and outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay. Now I have a screen share. Vocabulary. Let's see how many of us we can get here. Okay. I don't get everybody on my screen, but I have most of you. When we're doing vocabulary for these classes, you're not responsible for any of it unless you want to be. But we use both the Sanskrit and the Tibetan to plant seeds in our minds to help those 2 languages stay alive in our world. Most importantly is the Tibetan written, actually like the classical written, the formal written language of Tibet is what the texts were translated into, and people are not being taught to read or write that anymore. And so we're at a big risk for having this whole volume of Buddhist literature that nobody can do anything but look at, and bless themselves by putting it on your head, but you don't know what's in it. Which is why Geshe Michael is so driven to teach translators from students who have studied carefully, so that not only can they read the text, but they can understand it, so they can at least put it into English. Actually, we have some Chinese translators as well. So I'm going to do my part by just showing you that whatever you call this, the Pinyin version of the Sanskrit and the Tibetan, because I'm incapable of doing the other squiggly languages. So here we go. Just for those who maybe are new, we are studying in the Gelugpa Tibetan Mahayana Buddhist tradition. So Gelug, I'll come back to this in a little bit. I just want you to see the word so that when I say it, it'll mean something maybe. All right, so we're studying how karma works. And the place, the literature that gives a really in-depth and accurate explanation of karma and how it works is the literature that makes up what's called the Abhidharma school. Abhidharma school has a second name, Vaibhashika. Vaibhashika means the detailists, because they're so detailed, right? Because they choose a particular text that's very detailed. Abhidharma, I'll get to the meaning in a minute. Abhidharma is what is being studied in detail. And so they become known as the Vaibhashika. In Tibetan, the word Abhidharma is Chö Nungpa. So please hear yourself say Chö Nungpa, just for the seeds. The Abhidharma study and practice was one of the earliest levels of Buddhist practice that evolved after Lord Buddha left our planet. So, we might think, well, if it was like the first one, shouldn't it be the first thing that's studied? And in the monastic tradition, the boys start their monastic training at 7 years old, typically. And they learn logic. They learn to read and write and other things, but they learn logic. They learn actually some middle way very early on. And it's not until their 15th year, meaning not that they're like 15 years old. No, I have that wrong. Not till their 15th year, which means they're almost 20 or more before they actually get these teachings on Abhidharma and the Abhidharma Kosha, the fine details of karma. It's curious. The study of Abhidharma comes to us from a particular root text. The root text means it's the main text, and any other Abhidharma texts are commentaries on that one. So this root text is called the Abhidharma Kosha. So same word, but with kosha at the end. In Tibetan, it's Chö Nungpa Dzu. This is the text. Abhidharma up here, it's a subject matter. Abhidharma Kosha is the text that we're going to be studying about this subject matter. It was written by Master Vasubandhu. The Tibetans call him Lopang Nyikyen. He's an Indian master, not Tibetan. He came and went long before Buddhism went into Tibet. 350 AD is Master Vasubandhu's time frame. We don't know exactly. We know him, I think, as Master Asanga's half-brother. Remember the story? So there's this good nun in India. It's hard to be a nun in India. And she's a good nun. And she has this clairvoyant vision that if she had two children, two boys, one by a king and one by a Brahmin, those two boys would grow up to be very wise and skillful Buddhist practitioners and teachers. And so at great risk to herself, she gave up her robes. She managed to have a son by a Brahmin and a son by a king. And these two boys, she taught them, right? And of course they excelled and they were really smart. And finally she sends them off, for formal training. And they have their realizations and they write commentary, right? And their books make up a big portion of the monastic training textbooks that are still used today in the Tibetan Buddhist monasteries that are now in India, right? Some are still in the Tibet region, but our Gelugpas are in India. So Master Vasubandhu was not a Abhidharma level student or practitioner, but he wrote this book Abhidharma Kosha, or really compiled it, in order to serve the population of Buddhists at his time, who were Abhidharmists, to help them understand their own school better. He also wrote later texts that were Mahayana texts, more closely related to his own practice, in which he refutes much of the Abhidharma. Not refute as in it's wrong, but refute as in it's insufficient for bringing us all the way along the path. The Abhidharma Kosha text, I'll tell you what all the chapters are in it, but we're only studying one of its chapters. We're studying chapter 4, the chapter on karma. And so what this course will cover is tonight's class. I will we'll go through what Abhidharma actually means. Second class, we study the basic kinds of karma. Third class, we look into what constitutes good and bad karma, meaning we go into ethics. Class 4, we talk about karmic results. Class 4 might actually take us up 4.5 to cover our karmic results well enough. And if I need to take some extra time, we'll figure out how to do it. Class 5 is a deeper discussion on how karma is carried in our minds. But this is not from the Abhidharma Kosha book, nor from the school of Abhidharma. It will come to us from a mind-only school text written by Jetsun-Kappa, not meaning Jetsun-Kappa was a mind-only school person. But his text describing mind-only school is a really strong one for helping us understand how karma is carried in our minds. In class 6, we will look into the interrelationship between karma and emptiness, which is critical to understand. Then class 7 is the subject matter called a karmic path of action. That has evolved into the 4 steps, right, that I think we've all at least heard of, if not learned to work with. Class 8 is about what's called our root of virtue and how it's possible to destroy our root of virtue and how dangerous that is. And so we study it so that we know what to do to avoid it. Class 9 is about the 5 immediate misdeeds and schisms in the community. And class 10 is tricks for how to make karma in a more powerful way. And then class 11, as you know, is our review class, where you will teach me what you learned in the other classes. All right. So let's go back here to Abhidharma, what the Sanskrit word Abhidharma means, Chunugpa. And what Abhidharma Kosha, Chunumpatsu, mean. So Abhi, the ABHI portion, corresponds to the nun, the nun in Tibetan, and it means approaching, like coming up to. There's a temple down the street and you're walking towards it. You are approaching the temple, is what Abhi means, coming up to. But it has a connotation that the temple is uphill. Like you really are not just approaching it, but you're coming up, like something higher. And so you're coming up to it. Then Dharma, we hear the word Dharma all the time. In Tibetan, it's Chu. We think of the word Dharma as meaning the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. But the word Dharma comes from the root der, D-H-R, which I'm just parroting what Getcho Michael teaches me. I don't know roots of Sanskrit scripts from the alphabet, but der means to hold. And so the word Dharma actually literally means that which holds. And what it means, that is that which holds an identity. So technically the word Dharma means an existing thing. Any existing thing is a Dharma, right? The pen is a Dharma. The wall is a Dharma. Your interest or boredom in this class is a Dharma, right? It's like any existing thing in any moment is a Dharma. So if we're talking Abhidharma, it's like approaching this highest existing thing. So Abhidharma means we're approaching this highest existing thing. What would you guess that would be, keeping in mind that we are talking about the very, very early Buddhists in India, right after Lord Buddha's time?
Nirvana.
Anybody care to guess?
Nirvana, no?
Nirvana, exactly. Exactly. Early Buddhists, and meaning not necessarily in the time frame, but when we first meet a spiritual path, our renunciation usually has to do with my life is all messed up. I want to stop my messed up life. Thank you very much. And then later we go, oh, everybody else is just as messed up. Look, maybe I can help them too. But our first impulse really is from our own misery. And don't feel bad. If we don't have that, we won't want to get out. We won't want to change. So it's good to have that level of selfishness that says, I got to stop this broken system just for me. But very quickly, those who have the seeds to recognize just me, no, right? Everybody. I don't want this to happen to anybody. I want everybody to get free. We shift from what's called the Hinayana level, vehicular capacity, to the Mahayana. I thought I wrote Hinayana down. Let me see here. No, I didn't. Where should I put it in? Do I need to put it in? You guys know Hinayana, right? Yana means vehicular capacity. How much can you carry? A Volkswagen van can carry a certain amount. A train car can carry a whole lot more. Hinayana means a lesser vehicular capacity, a smaller vehicular capacity. Mahayana means great vehicular capacity. So when our aspiration is nirvana, that's a great aspiration. In the Buddhist overview, it's called the smaller capacity. I mean, may we all reach the goal of smaller capacity. May we even believe we can do it. It's not to be disrespected. It simply means me, my nirvana. And then when it turns to train car size capacity, that's when you shift your focus of an aspiration to becoming that being made of love, compassion, wisdom. Right? A bigger capacity. And that capacity is the capacity to carry all existing beings to their freedom. If they want nirvana, that's what you bring them to. If they want Buddhahood, that's what you bring them to. Right? Big capacity. So Abhidharma is a study from the perspective of wanting to reach nirvana. And yet, within the text about this, the chapter on karma is as good as it gets in terms of what we need to know to reach either nirvana or Buddhahood, right? Which is why we're studying it. All right, so Abhidharma, it means up to the highest existing thing, meaning up to nirvana. But what would we need to know? What would we need to do to get there? We need to have a clear intellectual understanding and then a direct experience of the no self nature of oneself. Technically, that will grow into the no self nature of all existing things also. An Abhidharma school level, they call this selflessness. They call it the realization of the no self. When we hear the word in English, no self, right? My mind still goes, what? No me? Because of the word. But it doesn't mean no self at all, silly Sarani, obviously. It means something not there that I think is there. For my own mind, that's why I use the cumbersome phrase, to reach the no self nature of me. No self-existent me. But even when we say it that way, what they mean by no self-existent me in Abhidharma is different than what we've been so highly trained to impose onto what we mean by not self-existent. The whole training through ACI is learning these nuances of what's meant by the word not self-existent. Because without understanding the lesser understandings, we can't really understand the highest understanding. And even if we do intellectually understand the highest understanding, our behavior in our world is from the lesser understanding, if even that. And in order to grow to the highest understanding, we need to be able to catch ourselves in behaviors being chosen from the lower understanding. Follow? So learn the lower understandings so that you can catch yourself doing them. And that's what will lead us to be able to reaching the higher understandings that will reach, though those explanations at ACI. We'll get a glimpse in ACI 6, which is coming next, and in greater depth in ACI 12. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, Abhidharma means, approaching the highest thing, which means bringing us up to nirvana, which means gaining the wisdom that we need to be able to reach nirvana. And then the text that teaches us about all of that is called Abhidharma Kosha. So Kosha means treasury or treasure house, more than a bank, but like the king, had his particular room where all the jewels and all the treasures and all the money and everything was kept. And that's the treasury, the treasure house, right? Fort Knox in the United States, supposedly all the gold is there. So why does Master Vasubandhu call his Abhidharma text the treasure house of higher wisdom? Is it higher wisdom or higher knowledge? Treasure house of higher knowledge, Geshe Michael calls it. When Master Vasubandhu composed this text, what he did was he compiled the 7 texts that were the first to be written down by Lord Buddha's close students after Lord Buddha passed. So, Buddha taught for, I don't know how long, 50 years, 53 years. And then he never wrote down his teaching notes. They didn't have a way to record them. He didn't write books. And his students thought he'd be around forever, of course. And then he manifests leaving. And they go, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And somewhere along the line, I don't know the story exactly. They get together and they say, well, you know, I remember this teaching that he gave in Deer Park. I'll bet I can write it down, right? And everybody can check it to make sure. And then somebody says, well, I remember the one at Vulture's Peak, and I remember the one. So apparently there were 7 of these great students that wrote down everything that they remembered. And Master Vasubandhu managed to get a hold of copies of those. I don't know how many of them could there have been. And he didn't like photocopy them and put them into his book, but he took all that information and he compiled it like an encyclopedia, so that all that knowledge, wisdom that were in those 7 books ends up in this treasury of higher knowledge. So if the treasury is that it's the treasure house of these 7 books. And then guess what? Those 7 books go on to be completely lost. They don't exist anymore. And as we know, the much of the Sanskrit literature from Lord Buddha's time, like others got written down over the ages, most of the Sanskrit is also gone. But before it got destroyed, the Buddhism was moving into Tibet, and the Tibets had the wisdom to write it into their own language, which they made in order to do so, made a written language to be able to do so. And they managed to translate all the Sanskrit that they could get their hands on before the Sanskrit was destroyed when the Mongols invaded India shortly thereafter. So the Tibetan collection of Buddhist literature is one of the most complete because of the strength of the translators and the support by the powers that be that got it done, which is again why it's important for us to keep that language alive enough until all that stuff gets translated. And if you go to Mixed Nuts Translators, you can see how it isn't ever gonna all get translated. But the most important stuff can. Alrighty. So why is it called Kosha Zu? Because it's the treasury of these 7 primary texts of Buddhist teaching. All right, let's take a break. Yeah, let's take a break. I'm going to stop my share. Pause the recording, pause the recording. Yep, pause the recording. And resume recording, mine too. I share screen again. Get you guys back. All right, all right. Okay, so nirvana is what the wisdom that will take us to nirvana is what Abhidharma is actually talking about. We're calling it higher knowledge. The treasure house of higher knowledge, written by Master Vasubandhu, 350 AD in India. Right, so we don't get confused and think he's some Tibetan guy.
¿Y cómo hago para escucharlo?
Wait, who's yapping? Who's doing that? Okay, thanks. Okay, so The Abhidharma school is also called Vaibhashika school, the detail lists. Just for like context, there came to be 4 main schools of thought in the evolution of Buddhism. Vaibhashika was the first. Sautrantika is the second. It means the sutras, because these folks said, I'm just going to study the sutras directly. Then evolution occurs and grows into what's called the Chittamatra or Yogacarya school, known in English as mind only. Mind only school does not believe everything is in your mind. We'll learn what it means. Then from there, middle way, Madhyamaka, evolves. The evolution happens because from each of these schools, there were practitioners who came to see that there were limitations in the school they were studying. And then they went back to scripture, went to teachers to understand it better and deeper. And it evolved. Don't confuse the 4 Buddhist schools with the 4 sects, sects, of Tibetan Buddhism. So Tibetan Buddhism has the Nyingma, the Sakya. I thought I wrote it. Nope, I didn't. That's going to take me too long. Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Gelugpa. The Gelugpa is the newest.
Is there,
Nyingma
Lama?
was the oldest.
You have it written there.
I have it here.
Under.
There. Ha, thank you. Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Gelugpa. Different Tibetan groups. These are all Mahayana. All of Tibetan Buddhism aspires to reaching total Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Indian evolution of the schools, the first 2 are designed to help the practitioner reach nirvana as the highest thing they can reach. Chittamatra and the 2 Madhyamakas say, no, I can become Buddha. So they're called Mahayana. Right? There it is, Hinayana, Mahayana. Okay, so now the Abhidharma Kosha is a difficult text to read, even if you can read Tibetan. The English translations that are available, if you're in the right frame of mind, you can sit down with it and read it, and it's like, oh, wow, like information so clear. And then you pick it up the next day, and it's like, I can't understand, is this even English? So we need commentaries. We in our degenerate age, we need somebody to write a commentary that when we read it, we can catch on. So typically in the tradition, you would learn, like you wouldn't necessarily know how to read, you the student. And you go to the teacher and they teach you the text. They teach you, they help you memorize it. They teach you about it. And then you meditate with it and you work with it Maybe you learn to read it. But it wasn't like you could go and buy a copy and have your own copy. Like one copy was available for the whole monastery. So it was an oral tradition, passed down, teacher to student. Student becomes the teacher, passes it along. And the teacher explains the code. But somewhere along the line, somebody goes, I got to just write this down. Because, there are people who need it, and I won't be here I can only do one-on-one, it's like, let's write it down. So finally, someone named Gelwa Gendon Drup, 1391 to 1474, he writes a commentary on the Abhidharma Kosha, explaining the code, right? Explaining what it means, so that those of us in the future would have a book that we could rely upon as an explanation as we tried to study the Abhidharma Kosha itself. Gelwa Gendon Drup. Gelwa became his title. Gelwa Gendon Drup is known to be the first Dalai Lama of Tibet. He was one of the students of Jetsun Kappa. So very skilled, highly trained, and went on to then be recognized in a reincarnation as the emanation of Chenrezig, right? Which is what His Holiness represents. So, he wrote this commentary on Abhidharma Kosha called Tarlam Selje. Tarlam Selje is Tibetan. Tarlam means path to freedom. Tar means freedom, as in Tara, Lady of Liberation. Lam is the path, not just meaning how you get there, but the realization that takes you there. And Selje means illumination. Tarlam Selje, illumination of the path to freedom, is the commentary on Abhidharma Kosha written by the first Dalai Lama, Gelwa Gendon Drup. Gelwa means victorious one. Now, in Tarlam Selje, he explains that Abhidharma Kosha is talking about two kinds of Abhidharma. Abhidharma means that which takes us to the highest thing, the knowledge that takes us to nirvana. He says, look, there's two kinds. There's Sherab and Jedong. Sherab, if you recognize that word, Tibetan word for wisdom, it's what they mean by higher knowledge. Then the Jedong, it's actually, when Geshe-la says it, it sounds like it's Jedong, like the R isn't there, but it's this R that's really silent that I can't do, Jedong, Jedong. It means accessories, things that follow along behind. So Geshe-la's example was, some people used to tie cans to the bumper of their car. I don't know, like somebody's getting married and you tie all these cans to the bumper of their car, and when they drive away, it makes all kinds of noise. That's what Jedong means. Things that follow along behind. But what's weird is that in this case, what's meant by Jedong, the accessories to wisdom, are things that actually come first before you reach the Sherab. So why they're called cans tied to your bumper, I don't know. Sherab is the main Abhidharma, the main highest knowledge that we are aspiring to. And it is the knowledge that we have and that we continue to accumulate upon what's called the unstained paths. So in the 5 paths to your Buddhahood, 2 of those paths are stained and 3 of them are unstained. The 5 paths you recall: the path of accumulation, accumulating enough disgust with this life to want to do something different. The path of preparation, study, 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 meditate, 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 serve, 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 preparing to experience ultimate reality for the first time. Path of preparation. Also, those 2 are called the stained path because we are still steeped in our stained mind of a belief in a me and mind. It's self-existent me in a self-existent world that I'm trying to stop, but I can't see it accurately yet. So even my very best behavior is still gonna bring me pleasure that wears out. Stained. The 3 unstained paths are the path of seeing, that time frame from seeing, experiencing directly your seed opening, dependent origination, to experiencing directly the ultimate reality, emptiness, to coming out and experiencing directly the 16 aspects of the 4 Arya truths. All of that, probably 24 hours. Then after that, path of habituation, learning to choose your behavior based on what you now know is true. And that takes lifetimes to work off all the old past selfishness and reach that place where there are no more mental afflictions or seeds for more that can ripen, reaching nirvana. But for a Mahayanist, that's just a side effect of your path of preparation. You're continuing to do what you need to do until your perception of yourself is Buddha, clearing out even the obstacles to omniscience. Path of seeing, path of habituation, reaching path of no more learning, which is called a path, but it's the goal, right? So it's the realization of becoming that 4 bodies of your Buddha you. So those 3 paths, seeing, habituation, no more learning, they're called unstained. Because although you're still in a stained world, still in samsara, your mind no longer believes in the self-existent nature of things. So even as you're in a stained world, the seeds that you're planting are no longer stained. Right? So Sherab is the wisdom of the path of seeing and the wisdom that's being gained by the path of habituation, all the way up to the wisdom gained that makes us fully enlightened being. All of that is included in Sherab. Chedong are the knowledge that we're gaining through our path of accumulation and our path of preparation. They're not really called wisdoms, but they're accessories to wisdom, because without them, we're not going to reach wisdom. So they actually come first. You've got the cans tied to your bumper before you even have a bumper to tie them to. You're building your chedong. And then once you have sherab, that's when your chedongs are following along behind. It means you don't give them up. Right? They're still a part of you, but they're, right? I don't know, I guess stuff you teach about. Sherab and chedong. That's your question 4. So now in Abhidharma level, when they speak of what you see directly at your path of seeing, they use the word selflessness, the direct perception of selflessness. Whereas in middle way, we say direct perception of emptiness. And they're talking about the same thing, the absence of self-existence. But what they actually mean by that, like the capacity of the mind, doesn't quite get it right at the level of calling it selflessness as compared to the capacity of the mind that we're talking about when we call it the direct perception of emptiness. The experience is the same, but the interpretation of it coming out of the experience is based on the you going into it, what you knew going into it, right? We'll learn selflessness versus emptiness in greater detail when we get to the 6 flavors of emptiness and some other places, right, in ACI. So this chedong, the accessories to knowledge, also has 2 divisions. It has the nominal accessories to knowledge, and it has the real accessories to knowledge. Nominal accessories to knowledge means the books, the teachings, you know, things that we use to learn about stuff. They're called nominal because nominal means they exist in name only. But here it means if you hold a book of Dharma teachings and you're reading it, is the book wisdom? No, it's words on a page. The wisdom's gonna, right? The wisdom has to be here. It's not in the book. We study the book to gain the wisdom. So they call the accessories to higher knowledge nominally is the words on the page, or the words that you hear, or the recording. The real accessories to knowledge is the state of mind that results from when we learn something new, analyze it, cook it, get some kind of, I understand about it. That's the real accessories to knowledge. It's something inside you, you know, whether you say your mind is here, your mind is there, or some combination. The real accessories to knowledge are inside your mind, not in the books. It seems different, doesn't it? It seems backwards. It's like, no, the real is in the book, and this stuff in my mind is all made up. And it's like, nope, other way around. Okay. So in particular, related to the Abhidharma Kosha study of Abhidharma is the state of mind that intellectually understands selflessness, leads us to the experience in which the state of mind that directly experiences selflessness. And the state of mind that intellectually understands selflessness, what will come along with it is that the state of mind that creates negative karma and the state of mind that understands selflessness are contradictory. They can't be held in your mind at the same time. So the better intellectual understanding of selflessness that we have, the less able we are to choose a behavior that will come back to hurt us once we understand the connection. Geshe-la's example was, if you know that putting your hand in the fire will burn you, and you don't want to be burnt, then you cannot put your hand in the fire. It's not that you just won't. It's that you couldn't make yourself do it if you tried. When you have those two understandings, fire will burn my hand, I don't want to be burnt. But if you do put your hand in the fire anyway, then it means you either didn't really believe fire would burn you, or you really didn't not want to get burned, or you stopped knowing that fire could burn you. Like, those are the only three possibilities for if you get your hand burnt. It sounds absurd, but we do it all the time. Somebody's yelling at us and we yell back. That's like fire burns. I don't want to get burnt, but I don't like that fire. I don't like what it's doing to me. You stick your hand right in it. Only because we're misunderstanding something about the picture. Now, fire can't burn me. I don't really mind getting burnt. Oh, I forgot that fire could burn me. It's just so crazy, but it's just as crazy to yell back at somebody who's yelling at us. And we do it all the time and we justify it. They're a jerk. They had no business, right? Okay. So there's a classical example for this that you'll see it in your reading. They say, look, we can't realize that the scarecrow is not a man and think it is a man at the same time. Like, yeah, duh. But we, in ignorant life, we're blaming a scarecrow for scratching my car door with their grocery cart. And it's like, well, that's silly. It couldn't have been a scarecrow. It had to be a real guy. Well, that's silly. It couldn't have been anybody doing anything to me that my karma didn't make them do. But without that level of understanding, we're not ever going to make that connection as a misconnection. And that's what our study is about. Yes, Flavia. Can you talk to me?
My sound stopped working. Now I'm hearing you. Let me see if I can connect it. I don't know. I should stop hearing you.
Testing,
Let me
testing.
see.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
Let me try now. Yes, now it's working. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Okay. All right, all right, all right. So in this analogy of realizing the scarecrow is not a man, so you can't see a man in the scarecrow, that's explaining that how the knowledge of selflessness, the sherab, actually like acts. We use it in our life as a way to help us choose our interaction with that scarecrow instead of interacting with the man we think it is. So, Geshe-la's jump forward many years. It's the two husbands in the kitchen, and are you gonna yell back at the husband that's not there? What good is that gonna do? But he is there and he is being nasty to me. Yeah, but which one is there? The one you're making or the one, right? So it's the same idea. You can't see that the person upsetting you is coming from your own seeds ripening and blame them for what they're doing at the same time. You can toggle back and forth, of course, but the highest wisdom is selflessness, and the accessories to our knowledge then are, and now what do I do? Like, what behavior do I choose to stop perpetuating this nasty situation? So we come to the same kind of conclusions from Abhidharma level of understanding the selflessness of me, of other. We come to the same conclusion. How I behave towards that other is going to impact what I experience in the future. The only way to stop our negative reactions and our negative habits is to reach this true realization of the selflessness. Right? Even just our own selflessness is enough to start the process changing. Okay, so there are 8 chapters in the Abhidharma Kosha root text. And Geshe-la wanted us to see all the chapters and how they flow, but we're only going to study one of them. Those 8 chapters. Chapter 1 is called The Categories of Existence. It describes in detail all existing things. The 5 heaps, the 12 gateways, the 18 this, the 24 that. Remember, in Buddha's first teachings, first turnings of the wheel, he's pointing out how all different things exist. And he goes, and you know what? They're all suffering and the cause is for more. But you have to know all the things that exist in order to go and see that there's not a single one of them that can bring me the happiness I want. So it's in detail, all existing things. Do you remember that chart? All knowable things, changing things, unchanging things, right? It's in there. That's all Abhidharma in that. It divides all those existing things into stained things and unstained things. And of course, mostly what we experience as ignorant human beings all day and all night are stained things, because our mind is still stained. All right, it's not the things, it's our mind. Stained things means our perception of something that triggers in us a reaction that inspires us to think, say, or do something that when that comes back to us, it will be unpleasant. And when that unpleasant thing comes back to us, it triggers something in us that makes us think, say, or do something back to that situation that plants a seed that when it ripens, it will come back to us as unpleasant again. And again, and again, and again. Same actually for our desires, right? Something good happens, we want to keep it for ourselves. And so we do. And so we use it up. And we didn't share. And so the next good thing that comes, it's going to wear out too. And we're making the same mistake, even with the things that we're wanting to keep. So stained. Suffering, ignorance perpetuating suffering. Chapter 2 is about the powers. It's a description of our faculties of perception, how our eyeballs, ear, nose, tongue, tactile, how those and our mental functions function, the interrelation of those. It also describes then how things occur. More detail from chapter 1 in chapter 2. Chapter 3 is called the suffering world. It further describes the material from chapters 1 and 2 and how 1 and 2 become all the realms of existence. And it goes into all the different kinds of suffering of all the different kinds of beings and all the different kinds of realms. It goes into Buddhist cosmology. It explains time and measurement and location. It's almost like a physics text at some point. Then chapter 4 is the chapter on karma, because it's like, it's how, where do those all come from, really? Oh, karma, right? Behavior. And it's not an obvious connection. So chapter 4 is all about how the suffering that comes from all of that stuff in chapters 1 through 3, how that suffering does not have to be, and how all that suffering does not in fact come from some creator God. That it comes from one's own karma, which we learn to mean one's own behavior. Then chapter 5 goes into the mental afflictions, because like the thing that propels us to choose a behavior is our mental affliction. And we react to some situation. We have a mental affliction about a situation, and that mental affliction says, yell to solve it, lie to solve it, right? Do something to protect myself to solve it. Do something unkind to protect myself to solve it. Or maybe I should better say, it's okay to do something unkind to protect myself to solve it. Right? When it's like, yeah, protect yourself, but do it in a way that's not unkind. And our ignorant mind goes, how can you do that? Right? They're being mean. I can't be nice to somebody who's mean. They'll just be meaner. True? Maybe, right? But not because you were nice, but because you were meaner to somebody who was nice to you when you were being mean. And we need to get that so deep that when we're about to be mean, we choke on it. And this chapter is like showing us how mental afflictions and karma are related. Then chapter 6 is about the person and the path, which is information about how you go about stopping those mental afflictions and how the practitioner progresses through those 5 paths. Chapter 7 is called the chapter on wisdom. So it's more detail on the wisdom that leads to freedom, called Yeshe at that point. Chapter 8 is called balanced meditation. That's the final chapter. And it's actually more about a Buddha state of mind, about a Buddha's knowledge, and how that Buddha state of mind is so perfectly balanced between dullness and agitation, between, if things don't exist the way they do, they must not exist at all, right? Balanced in that middle way, always. So chapter A implies that when we learn all previous chapters well, we can reach that state of balanced mind in and out of meditation. Okay, so the last question on your homework is a section that when we pick up any Buddhist book, somewhere the book should indicate that it has value to us. It's called the 4 requirements of a Buddhist book. Those 4 requirements are Juja, Gupa, Nigyu, and Drelwa. And if a book doesn't have these 4, even if it was written by a Buddhist and it claims to be a Buddhist book, it doesn't qualify. And you'll see why when I'm done. So Juja means it must have subject matter. Well, all books have subject matter, but for a Buddhist book, it needs to have a meaningful subject matter. Abhidharma's meaningful subject matter is the wisdom which understands stained and unstained objects. So your homework asks, what are the 4 qualities of a Buddhist book, and what are they in the case of the Abhidharma Kosha? Purposeful subject matter, and for the Abhidharma Kosha, that purposeful subject matter is the wisdom which understands stained versus unstained objects. Meaning, the wisdom that knows, that comes to know how we stop perpetuating our suffering. Gupa means purpose. It needs to have a meaningful purpose. In Abhidharma Kosha, its meaningful purpose is to plant the seeds of that wisdom in the reader's mind. So everything in that book is designed so that as we read it, these seeds are being planted, that when those seeds ripen, will be the ripening of this wisdom of stained and unstained things. The 3rd factor of a Buddhist book is Nigyu. It means the ultimate goal. It needs to have a meaningful ultimate goal. In Abhidharma Kosha, its ultimate goal is to bring the student to nirvana. Not Buddhahood, but nirvana. Geshe-la says, don't waste your time on any book that won't at least bring you to nirvana. And it's like, come on, Geshe-la, that's impossible. And, when you fast forward to your growing wisdom, it's like, it's not the book, it's the state of mind I bring to reading the book. Could be wisdom in, reading the Sunday comics. But when we're at the beginning stage, we want to be a little more discriminating, perhaps. Then number 4, drawa. Drawa means relationship. There needs to be a relationship between these 3. The meaningful subject matter, the meaningful purpose, and the meaningful goal. The relationship is, if you read this book, if you study it, if you work with it, it will work, right? The result will be, you will reach that ultimate goal that it's teaching you about. Not just by reading the book over and over again, but by learning what it's teaching us about, applying it to our life to develop that wisdom of stained and unstained things, meaning stained and unstained behavior. Right? No, it's not the things. It's the what we do in response to the things and the others and the situations and our goals. It's stained and unstained perception, stained and unstained choices of behavior. So we're learning all these pieces of the puzzle, right? To put together this great big jigsaw puzzle that we actually haven't seen the picture of it yet. So it's really, really hard to get your pieces all lined up, to get them to start in place until you understand better what the picture looks like. But we don't have the picture. So we're putting all the pink pieces over here and all the purple pieces over here. That's what the ACI is doing. And little by little, you'll start putting together the pieces of your jigsaw puzzle. And I'll tell you a secret, the big picture is your Buddha you. So fun. Okay, that finishes your class 1. You should have everything you need to do your homeworks. Luisa, you had a question earlier. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned at the beginning that the Abhidharma Kosha is a compilation of the teachings from the first 7 students, disciples, but why there are 8 chapters?
I don't know. Because
Okay.
I don't think that each chapter is, they
Is
took this
one.
text and made it a chapter. He wrote the book from those 7, but the material of all 7 is in this treasury.
Okay.
Not the
Okay.
word for word of the 7, I don't believe. I'm not absolutely sure on that. Okay, right, good question. Okay, so let's do our usual closing, unless there are any burning questions. No hands up. Okay. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class? We learned a lot, whether we think so or not, that we will use sooner or later to help that other in that deep and ultimate way. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guides. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you and inspire you and help you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom inside you. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person from the beginning of class. The next exhale you share with everyone you love. And then with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with this love, this compassion, this wisdom. They don't know where it comes from. It doesn't matter. And may it be so. All right. Thank you so much. Hi, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Louisa,
Thank you,
do you
Lama.
wanna-
Thank you.
Thank you,
Louisa,
Lama.
would you like to announce?
Okay, yes. So because I have noticed since I am supporting with collecting the homeworks and quizzes and so, I have noticed that not everybody is managing to finish on time. And then the proposal is to create a Telegram group where we can support each other, even if you want, we could have an extra class or add to this class at the end, depending of how our minds are ready for that, to do the homework and the quiz after the class, and then just do the meditations after that by yourself, but at least the homework and the quiz are ready. It's a proposal, or just to have the Telegram group. And
Yeah, we already have a Telegram group. I can post it in the chat.
for ACI 5,
It's for all with Lama Sarani, so
okay. I was not aware that it was for all of Lama Sarani's courses. Okay, then maybe can you send it per email? Because people who didn't join this class will not get it.
yeah. Yes.
You are muted, Lama.
Yeah. If I understand, your idea is for people to get together and to do their homeworks and quiz together so that you
That's
inspire each other and ask each other questions. I mean, I think it's a great idea, totally up to you all if it's useful and inspiring and, please, whatever you would like would be wonderful.
Or
And,
if someone is struggling with understanding the content and someone
Right.
else can help, yeah,
Right,
it's
Right.
but just to help is an offer,
right.
not
So
a
amongst
duty.
all of you, right?
Yeah.
However you wish to take advantage of that, please do. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Natty, for having it already. Okay, I'm stopping recording. Yes. Oh.